Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Magdalene Centre. Today I'm going to be talking about the full moon in Scorpio, which takes place on the 10th of May at 10:42 PM Universal Time. This particular full moon, it's an opportunity to reflect in two areas. One, it's time to look back to the 30th of October to the intention set at the Scorpio new moon, because this full moon marks the end results and the final harvest of the intentions set for that particular new moon. And it's also time to reflect on how well we strike the balance between Taurus and Scorpio, which we all have this polarity in our chart, and it's an important balance we need to strike between the two. So if you can remember what intentions is set in Scorpio for the new moon last year on the 30th of October, and you can remember what those intentions are, you can then use it to reflect using this full moon as to how well those intentions have manifested. So look at who you are now versus who you were then and see, has there been a major positive change along the Scorpio line? So it could be things like regeneration, healing, deeper understanding of who you are, letting go of power struggles, learning to surrender to a higher power despite the natural human tendency to try and fight for control, and just see how well have these goals been manifested since 30th of October last year. The other thing then to reflect on is the balance, because the full moon consists of the sun in Taurus and the moon in Scorpio. The sun has been in Taurus since the 19th of April, and this particular period is a time to look at developing our personal resources, developing self-worth, self-esteem, to ground our identity into the physical body so we become more effective at interacting with our environment, and also understanding how to appreciate our environment, maybe spending more time in nature, slowing down a bit, and to really appreciate the simple things that we have, appreciate the material possessions that we already have, rather than fighting to try and get more or be possessive along material lines. So with Sun here, this is the main thing that's been reflected, but if all the emphasis is on Taurus, maybe more drawn to the shadow side, we do need the Scorpio polarity point, which the moon is passing through at the full moon, to help us strike the right balance. So Taurus is a much more surface-based experience of the world. It's all through the physical senses, grounding our sense of identity into the physical body. So if we got too much focused on Taurus, we can forget about the deeper levels of our own being, because it's important that we do enjoy life. We do remember to nurture the physical body, we do appreciate the physical experiences, and we do save the different pleasurable experiences we get through the physical senses, but we need to remember that there's a lot more to us than just what we feel through the physical senses. And this is where Scorpio comes in. Scorpio is the deepest levels of the self. It's ultimately like the soul, if you like, so it's at the core of our very being. And most of the time, because of the way we've been conditioned in life, we have many layers between this core of who we are and who we think we are. And the closer we can bring the two together until eventually we realise that we are that core, primal energy at the heart of our being, that's when we've reached the higher levels of Scorpio. But first we have to face conditioning and shed all the layers of conditioning that lie between the two. So if we're operating at the shadow level of Scorpio, we may find ourselves reacting instinctively, emotionally to things. So we may withdraw sharply and then lash out from the shadows. We may be like a scorpion, if you like, so we may try and hide to protect our vulnerabilities, but then strike back with vengeance later on. If we move to the next level of Scorpio, though, we come to the eagle. So this is where we're no longer lashing blindly, we're looking to understand ourselves better, to fly high above and watch the drama from below. And this helps to unlock a lot of the power tied up with Scorpio. Scorpio is a very powerful sign, and it's because it's right at the depths of our being where the core of the power lies. But we have to overcome all the conditioning, all the fears that lie between. So if we move to the eagle phase of Scorpio, then we start seeing the sides ourselves. We learn to gradually stop reacting blindly to everything and stop trying to seek power externally. But even at this stage, whilst maybe unlocking more power and be more empowered and close to authentic selves, it's not the final stage. The final stage is the Phoenix. This is the point where we stop trying to control everything, we stop trying to wield power to control others, and we surrender. We let go of the need to control our external environment and realise that true emotional security lies deep within ourselves by staying true to who we are, not by relying on other people to fulfill those needs. So it's about burning off all those shadow desires that are based on fear and insecurity, and embracing our true selves at the deepest core of our being, the soul, and by aligning the mind with the higher powers of divinity and the mysteries of the universe, rather than aligning it with earthly desires and the need to control everything. So this full moon is about balancing between being grounded in the physical body and operating from the deeper parts of our being that are there alongside the body. The two are together, but we're conditioned to just see ourselves as body consciousness and not the high consciousness of the soul. So this full moon is an opportunity to look at this. The ruler of this full moon is Pluto. Pluto is over in Capricorn, has been since 2008 and will be till about 2024. This, as it happens, Pluto is in direct alignment with the full moon. It's trine the sun and sextile the moon, which means that the transformational energies of Pluto, which demand us to operate via truth, to align our desires in a transpersonal nature, i.e. it's not for personal gain, we do things for the benefit of the collective around us. Pluto demands ultimate truth and will not tolerate any lies or anything like that, and will also highlight the shadow side of ourselves. So in Capricorn, we've been looking at the shadow sides of institutions, but we also need to look at the shadow side of how we wield authority, how we approach our goals and our reputation in life. Because if we approach authority as something to bolster our sense of who we are, because we've shut out our emotions, then that's when Capricorn becomes cold and aloof and so focused on ruthlessly pursuing power that it's forgotten it's the reason why it's building something. So Pluto is revealing, where do we engage in this sort of behaviour, where are we building reputations or legacies which are not aligned with who we are, and to change that, to have the courage to break down everything which does not serve us, to get to the core truth of it, and then rebuild and regenerate through the higher empowered version of ourselves that's been emerging over the past few years. If we've been doing work on ourselves to understand who we are and empower ourselves to take the actions we know in our heart of hearts is necessary. And with this Pluto sextile to this trine the sun, this means that our identity itself has the possibility of deep transformation through allowing Pluto to polarize within ourselves the different parts of our being, to see what are the shadow poles of things and then purge those from our being. Because Pluto is a polarizing energy, he takes the different parts of ourselves and splits them into positive and negative camp, if you like. More often than not, we end up projecting that onto other people, so we need to be mindful, where do we project things onto others, and learn to re-embrace those parts of ourselves, because when we do that, we can then get rid of it. Pluto's retrograde after all, so all of this is all about having the courage to face our shadow selves and transform it through love, through acceptance, and through surrender to truth. Because the more we surrender to truth, we may have to face pain initially, but that pain eventually goes as we align with truth. We don't have to face the pain of seeing our illusions that we may have cherished for years broken. Once we live in truth, we don't have to face the whole issue with illusions anymore. And Pluto is really helping at this particular full moon to highlight shadow sides, to empower us to transform our sense of who we are, so that we align with our soul self rather than the ego self, and to embrace truth, to see ourselves as more than just our bodies, and to realise that there's far more to our being than just the body that we live in, the thoughts that we think. The more we can operate from our deepest self, the more aligned we are with who we are, and more aligned we can be with our divine self, rather than just our earthly incarnation. So that's useful guide for what we can expect from the Scorpio full moon. May it bring many blessings for you.